GPT-3.
GPT-3.
GPT-3 is an algorithm developed by OpenAI.
AI has gotten one step closer to becoming human, the ability to think. It's true, the AI GPT-3 is now approaching the ability to think. An algorithm predicted this outcome by itself. In this video, you'll learn exactly what GPT-3 is capable of and how it's evolving its algorithm. Let's get going. In 2020, a disrupting AI algorithm was introduced by a research group named OpenAI, a San Francisco-based AI research lab founded by Sam Altman and Elon Musk. This was a third-generation language prediction AI which is similar to Google's autocomplete but much more sophisticated. The algorithm is known as GPT-3, Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3. It is the latest evolution of the GPT-n series language model. GPT-3 contains a massive 175 billion parameters, making it one of the world's largest AIs to date. If you have no idea what parameters are in AI, here's what they are. Parameters are variables in an AI algorithm that get tweaked and refined as the AI learns to perform a task. These parameters define how mature the AI algorithm is. Unlike any other AI out there, GPT-3 is getting somewhat close to artificial intelligence because it has been trained on the entire internet. Yes, GPT-3 is trained on the entire internet. Wikipedia, which contains over 6 million articles, only adds up to 0.6% of its entire training dataset. Just imagine how big the dataset was when it was training. Since the internet contains almost everything known to humans, GPT-3 requires no further training for each specific task. Everything on the internet is now part of GPT-3, which means it can almost do everything. Today, GPT-3 has been used for all kinds of projects, from simple chat programs to writing code, writing novels, blogging, and much more. With GPT-3, the limitations of AIs are slowly fading away. An interviewer named Sabati prompted GPT-3 write a Dr. Seuss poem about Elon Musk, and it came up with this. But then, in his haste, he got into a fight. He had some emails that he sent that weren't quite polite. The SEC said, "Musk, your tweets are a blight." None of the words in the poem above are edited. This is the original text it came up with. It's better than many, way better. For an AI not to be trained to write poems, this is impressive. GPT-3 was fed most of the internet as data and with lots of time and resources to train itself. GPT-3 emerged as an uncanny, clever language generator. But because this training was unsupervised by any human, GPT-3 has absorbed most of the human language, including the toxic parts as well. When prompted with a query, GPT-3 occasionally generates toxic language as a result of mimicking its training data, and those results are by no means good. Even with these results, this third version of GPT-n series produces less toxic language compared with its predecessor GPT-1. GPT-3 is a lot better than its predecessor in that the quality of the text generated by GPT-3 leaves almost no margin between its generated text and human-generated text. This brought a storm of fear and criticism on the internet about GPT-3. Looking at what it can do, GPT-3 can write entire blog posts. For example, this one on theguardian.com. This article is super neat. You might not believe it could write this. If you guys want to check it out, the link is in the description. Along with the writing blogs, GPT-3 can also generate code in HTML, Java, Python, and many more major programming languages. The team increased the capacity of GPT-3 by over 2 orders of size from GPT-2, making GPT-3 the largest non-sparse language model to date. Because of GPT-3's uncanny ability to mimic human language, it has the potential to advance both the beneficial and harmful applications of language models. In OpenAI's paper from May 28, 2020, the researchers described in detail the potential harmful effects of GPT-3, which include misinformation, spam, phishing, abuse of legal and governmental processes, fraudulent academic essay writing, and social engineering pretexting. GPT-3 represents a tremendous leap in artificial intelligence, while also staying as a major force to be reckoned with if it ever turned to the dark side. Look at this paragraph. Artificial intelligence programs lack consciousness and self-awareness. Researcher Gwern Branwyn wrote in this article about GPT-3. They will never be able to have a sense of humor. They will never be able to appreciate art or beauty or love. They will never feel lonely. They will never have empathy for other people, for animals, for the environment. They will never enjoy music or fall in love or cry at a drop of a hat. This paragraph is part of one of the GPT-3 GPT-3 generated articles. It was prompted when given this sentence, a few words expressing skepticism about AI. What's more disturbing is at one point, GPT-3 suggested to an interviewer, past a certain point, that improvement at prediction starts coming from logic and reasoning and what looks entirely too much like thinking. So in simple terms, GPT-3 predicts that soon it will gain the ability to think with the evolution of its algorithm. In late 2020, OpenAI released a public beta version of its algorithm to trusted developers as an application programming interface to see what GPT-3 was capable of, while its original source code is hidden from everyone except for Microsoft. Yes, on September 22, 2020, Microsoft announced that it had licensed exclusive use of GPT-3, while others can still use the public API to receive output. But only Microsoft has access to GPT-3's underlying model. Microsoft is definitely up to something. We'll see what that something is. Some say that GPT-3 is terrifying because it's a tiny model compared to what's possible, trained in the dumbest way possible. But some skeptics have argued that those short bursts of uncanny imitation are driving more hype than GPT-3 deserves. They point out that if a prompt is not carefully designed, GPT-3 will give poor quality answers, meaning the quality of GPT-3's output depends on how detailed we make the prompts for GPT-3. If we tell an AI system to break the high score in a video game, we expect it to play the game fairly and learn the game skills. But if it has the chance to directly hack the scoring system, it will do that to achieve the goal we set for it. It will be doing great by the metric we gave it, but we aren't getting what we wanted. That's one of the most disconcerting things about GPT-3, the realization that it's often giving us what we asked for, not what we wanted. If you prompted GPT-3 with, "Here is a short story," it will write a plain and mediocre story. If you instead prompt it with, "Here is an award-winning short story," it will write a better one. Yes, it can do that too. Because it has trained on the internet and most stories on the internet are sometimes bad, and with it being a text predictor, it comes up with just the text that seems most acceptable to the prompt. Telling it the story won an award changes what text seems most acceptable. Here's a better example. If you tell GPT-3 to go from A to B, it will probably walk there. If you tell it to run from A to B, it will do that. The more clear and more specific the instructions are, the better the results. With how smart GPT-3 is becoming, it is still an untamed technology with tremendous potential for going both ways. And it has been shown that without careful prompts, there is no way to filter GPT-3's toxic language. There was an incident like that happened with GPT-3 powered application called the Philosopher AI. It generated some of the toxic results of GPT-3 with the application's ungoverned prompts. The same incident can also happen with a customer service representative in your business, on AI in your phone, the characters in your video game, your virtual therapist, or an AI assistant who writes your emails. There's a lot of possible ways this can go wrong at unpredictable times. The developer behind Philosopher AI app, Murat Afer, says he quickly discovered the many ways in which his app could go wrong. He said, "With automation, you need either a 100% success rate or you need it to error out gracefully. The problem with GPT-3 is that it doesn't error out, it just produces garbage. And there's no way to detect if it's producing garbage. The fundamental problem is that GPT-3 learned about languages from the internet. The internet included not just news articles, Wikipedia entries, and books, but also found very unsavory discussions on Reddit and other sites. From the data, it drew 175 billion parameters that define its language. As Prabhu, one of the OpenAI's researchers, put it, these things it's saying, they're not coming out of a vacuum. It's holding up a mirror. Whatever GPT-3's failings, it learned it from humans. GPT-3 is now giving humans what it feels like to be on the other side. It gives us a taste of humans and reflects that right back at us. To tackle the problem, OpenAI is developing a general content filter for harmful bias and toxic language. However, one of the researchers says that such a filter is an impossible thing to create, since bias is a very nebulous thing that keeps shifting based on context, particularly on controversial topics. A response that might seem right for one group could be toxic for the other. A handful of researchers at Allen Institute for AI in Seattle have also been probing GPT-3 along with other language models and have been trying out several mitigation strategies. And the conclusions stated in their paper, which was presented at the end of 2020 in November at Empirical Methods in Natural Language Processing Conference, no current mitigation method is fail-safe against the neural toxic degeneration. So the bottom line is that there is no possible way to keep GPT-3 from generating toxic language. What's more is that researchers say reducing the toxicity can also have the side effect of reducing the fluency of the language or how fluent it is. A famous artificial intelligence researcher said no matter how good our computers get at winning games like Go or Jeopardy, we don't live by the rules of those games. Our minds are much bigger than that. But imagine where GPT-3 is now and where it will be in the next 10 to 20 years. In 1 year, it doubled in size. What's next? Will that statement be true in 10 to 20 years?